Okay, the Norfolk Public School Board District School, let's start again. The Norfolk Public School District's Board of Education meeting is being called to order. Let's do roll call.
Here.
Here. Present.
Dr. Rubles.
Here.
Mr. McNally.
Present.
Present.
Thank you. This is a legal meeting of the Board of Education as advertised by the means specified in board policy. A complete copy of the Open Meetings Act is posted in the boardroom for your review. A copy of the agenda is available at the desk of the recording secretary. Please stand and join us in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. The next item is presentations. Strategic Plan, Action Plan presentation by Mr. Jared Oswald.
Thank you, Madam President. I have the responsibility of overseeing two of our strategic action plan goals. Goal 1, which is by 2026, NPS will exceed the state average on all state student achievement assessments. And Goal 5, by 2027, NPS will have district-wide comprehensive behavior, mental health, and academic systems of support in place for students. And part of the reason I get to present on these goals together is because I'm overseeing them, but also because the teams that develop these goals believe that completion of Goal 5 will be one of the most important factors in us meeting the goal that we have set for Goal 1. And so with that, I'm actually going to start with Goal 5. So Goal 5, the teams develop 3 strategic objectives to help meet the goal of developing those systems of support for students. Strategic Objective 1 has to do with developing academic systems of support, which we'll more commonly talk about as MTSS, or multi-tiered systems of support. Objective 2 is more on the behavior, social, emotional, mental health side, and those systems of support we'll usually refer to as PBIS, Positive Behavior Interventions and Support. And then strategic objective number 3 is to have a process in place for training our staff and communicating how those systems of support work with our staff. So that first strategic objective, and I'm just going to start by saying that both MTSS and PBIS sound very similar when we talk about them in detail, because they are both tiered systems of support designed to provide support to all students to meet their needs. And so you'll see this triangle approach taken with both MTSS and PBIS, where our goal is to have Tier 1 supports in place that meet the needs of most students. A lot of times we'll refer to that as core teaching, core behavior interventions. And then we also have our second tier, which is much more targeted, designed to meet students where they are, whether it's academically or behaviorally, and provide targeted support on the skills where students are struggling and where they need extra support. And then to have a third tier in place, which is even more intensified support for students who still are struggling and still aren't achieving success through Tier 2 and Tier 1 interventions. And so, as I said, that while we're talking about MTSS first, this is going to be the same basic concept when we talk about PBIS as well. And so NPS has been working through the Nebraska MTSS program through a SPDIG grant, and I always have to write this down because I forget what that acronym stands for, but it's a state personnel development grant that allows us to work with members from across the state of that Nebraska MTSS team. They come in with their expertise, they help train our staff and provide us ideas and feedback on the systems that we have set up, and we were able to work with them again this summer. I think it's been 3 summers in a row that we've worked with those teams, and they've been able to provide us with some really good ideas and really good feedback on where we are with our systems. And so again, thinking about this in 3 tiers, when we talk about MTSS, right now we are very strong in our implementation of Tier 1 and Tier 2 supports. MTSS meetings in K-6 are held every 6 weeks. At those meetings, teacher teams and teams of counselors and administrators will identify students who need extra support. They'll design and put in place what that support's going to look like. And if they have students who are already receiving those Tier 2 supports, they'll discuss and evaluate the effectiveness of what's going on with that student already. And then they'll decide either to make changes or if the student has reached success through those supports and if they can be removed. But they'll have those conversations about each individual student and they'll make decisions together on what happens next. In our 7 through 12, Tier 2 supports are in place, but one of the things, the challenges we face at the secondary level is when you have a student who's struggling in K-6, generally they are in one teacher's classroom, so a team that's going to meet to have those conversations is small. But in 7-12, that team could include 6 or 7 different teachers. So it's really difficult to hold those meetings regularly on a 6-week cycle like we do at that K-6 level. And so those Tier 2 support meetings are a little bit less formal. They're not as standardized in their timing, but they happen when teachers reach out to counselors to identify a student who needs some extra help, or that work is done within the teacher teams that meet within their PLC time. So that's where a lot of that support's happening to 7-12. And so when we talk about PBIS, the support for behavior, the identification of behavior supports, this is a flow chart that exists within our PBIS decision rules document, but this just kind of gives you an idea of what types of supports might be available to students. And I'm going to point out what we see there on Tier 2. Check-in, check-out is the most regularly used Tier 2 intervention that we use with students who are struggling with behavior. And so in K-8, whoops, sorry about that. I went backwards somehow. K-8, we have implemented check-in, check-out as our Tier 2 intervention. 9 through 12 is using a similar intervention that's called check-in connect. But the baseline idea behind each of these interventions is to get a student a relationship with a teacher or a staff member within the building. In check-in, check-out, how that works is the student, when they get to school, checks in with that staff member. If they've got goals that they've identified that they're going to be working on, the staff member has a brief conversation about how those goals are going, gives the student some encouragement so that they can just remind them of what those goals are and encourage them to follow throughout the day. And then at the end of the day, the student's going to check out before they leave school with that same staff member. And again, a similar conversation, just building that relationship, but then also checking on those goals that they've set for that student. Check and Connect at the high school level is a little bit more of an in-depth mentoring program where the staff member that is assigned as a mentor meets with that student for a little bit longer period of time. And right now the time is flexible. They'll arrange time throughout the week to meet with that student when they can make it work in both of their schedules. So we worked with the NEMTSS team this summer to evaluate how those Tier 2 systems are going. So far, we're happy with our progress and how both of those Tier 2 interventions are working. We knew going into the summer that Tier 3 needed to be developed more in depth. And so through those meetings, we've got some processes in place for how to identify students for Tier 3, that more intensive support, and what we're working to develop exactly what those Tier 3 interventions look like. And so that will be a goal we're working through this year to get those Tier 3 systems in place for identifying students and providing that extra support. Oops, all right. Mr. Hughes, oh, there we go. Clicking too fast, sorry. And then objective number 3 is training. As I mentioned, that SPDIG grant's been really beneficial for us getting training for our staff. Working with that team through NEMTSS in the summer has been really, really beneficial for both administrators and for staff members. We also allow our staff the opportunity to attend the NEMTSS Summit that occurs in the fall in Kearney. We've had, I don't know, Mr. Hughes, you went last year. We've had anywhere from 10 to 20 staff members attend that each fall. And so that's just a good experience to go work with colleagues from around the state, to get some ideas, to get feedback and network with how our systems are going and what other schools around the state are having success with. Maybe give some ideas for what we can do to improve the systems that we're using. All right, and then with that, our objectives for goal number 1. So again, going back to those 2 goals, goal number 1 is to either meet or exceed the state average on our assessments. So the strategic objective that was set was that we would show growth each spring on our end of the year NSCAS growth and ACT data. And then our second objective was that we would have a communication plan for the data so that we could share it with stakeholders. And so where we are currently is with our NSCAS data is we've seen a real positive trend the last 3 years overall, increasing in ELA, math, and science. Although math, we had a really big increase from 21-22 to 22-23. Last year we settled down just a couple more points, back down from 59% proficient to 56% proficient. So that's something we're keeping an eye on, why that we had that little dip last year. But if you compare us to the state, we're right at the state average in all 3 areas. Just a little bit behind in math, but a little bit ahead in ELA. Sorry, a little bit behind in math and science, and a little bit ahead in ELA. So our goal, again, is to continue to work through those systems of support so that we can get our students to exceed that state average. ACT data over the last few years. The ACT data, we saw a little bit of a drop from 21-22 down to 22-23, but that was really common, not just across the state, but across the country. So we saw a little bit of a bounce back this last year, going back up a little bit in each of the 3 areas. But if you look at us compared to the state, compared to our peers, our other peer schools, we are, again, a little bit behind in ELA, and actually a little bit behind in all 3 areas. But we're focused on where we've seen the growth in all 3, and with the strategies that we've used. I think right now we've identified math probably as our biggest area of focus. We're a little bit behind the state, probably, or we're the most behind the state in that area, and so that's just a continued area of getting those systems of support in place so that we're getting all students to meet their goals when it comes to math instruction. As far as communication goes, each year we release our NSCAS and ACT scores, and those are printed by the different media outlets. We release them in a press release, usually in October when everything is freed to the public. State scores are embargoed until then, until all the data can be verified. But as soon as it is unembargoed, then we will release it to the public, just like we have for the last few years. All right. That's all I have. Any questions for me? Fast and Furious.
I have some questions.
Mm-hmm.
So who makes up the teams for strategic action? Can you give us a kind of a
Sure.
heads up on that?
Yeah, so the strategic action plan teams represent somebody from basically each level in the district. So we have teachers, we have administrators, counselors usually. I don't remember exactly the makeup, but there's a mix of each of those groups on each of our strategic action plan teams.
Then on objective 2, the check-in, check-out.
Yep.
For the elementary, is that mostly their classroom teacher that they're working with when they check in and check out, or is that another individual or a para perhaps, or?
It depends on the building. Yeah, it really varies. Sometimes it can be a lot to put that responsibility on the classroom teacher, so we may try to use a different staff member. It could be a para, it could be really anybody in the building who we think could form a positive relationship with that student.
And then the third comment I have is that when we have these teachers attend this summit in the fall, is there any way we could have, I'd really like to hear their feedback from the teachers themselves, not just from you, but maybe have some teachers come up during a presentation and hear, what did they benefit from it and why did they think it was really good or not good or whatever, and get some feedback from the teachers themselves. That would just be a comment I have.
Sure.
Jared, I just had one quick question. Thank you for the nice presentation. I was just curious, you kept mentioning that we were right at or equal to what the state was. Is that a positive thing, or is that a bar that we try and hit, or seems like we should be trying to go much higher than what the state is doing?
I think we're always trying to increase our scores regardless of where we are. But I think, yes, we're always trying to get better. It's difficult when you set a goal that has to do with where others are. I think we try to really focus on where we are in relation to last year and try to see that growth. And if we can do that, then we know we'll be in good shape with our peers and the rest of the state.
You go into it, though, your goal is to just increase a little bit, or does the team go into it and say, let's get to, the state's at 54%, let's get at 70, that'll be our goal?
Yeah. I'll be honest, this is kind of this is my second year in this role, starting my second year in this role. I'm kind of learning where we want to set those goals, because we need to make sure that they're realistic and they put us in, we have a good opportunity to meet those goals. And so, it's something I'm really working on right now, is what are going to be our goals going into next year. And I think Mr. McAllister and I have had some conversations about where we go with that. And he's got some really good input. So I'm excited to set some specific goals for next year and share them with you when we get those set.
Thank you, that sounds great.
This isn't a question, Jared, but just a comment. And an idea, so take it for what it's worth. And I would really rely on the rest of the board members to see if they like the idea, but there's so much data available to us from NSCAS, we get kind of highlight, but I would really appreciate having an opportunity for the board to have a data retreat. So we could really sit down, dive into the data a little bit more than what we see here, because I think it's also a really important conversation for us, and it's also a way for you and other members to provide an update about, how is MTSS working in terms of really making a difference.
Absolutely. And I agree with a couple of things. I think one of the things I've noticed in my role is I want to narrow our focus to which data is important, because we do have a lot. And if you focus on all of it, you're not going to get anywhere. But we do, with working with Nebraska MTSS, they give us some good ideas on what data to monitor when it comes to looking at the effectiveness of our systems of support specifically. And so we have some decision rules in place, and I will defer to Mr. McAllister if that's something we want to schedule, a data retreat for the board, but that would be something that would be maybe useful.
Well, I think what I'm hearing you say right here, we're getting the final score, but we don't get to see the game. So sometimes seeing the game gives us new insights. So that could be a real positive.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jared. Next item on our agenda is building visits. I can start. A couple weeks ago, I went to the high school because I wanted to see the old little theater. We're filling that in and going to make it more of a multi-purpose room for many different activities, and our chairs and our tables will all be movable, so we can have lots of people working around one table, or we can have individuals working. So I wanted to see that, and it's all filled in. They were working on sheetrock, working on but ceiling. It's going to be a real nice room and just be a lot more useful to the whole school, I think, now that it's filled in, and have better seating arrangements and better tables. So that was exciting. And then we went over and looked at the gym, because the gym is being completely sanded down and all new flooring and new coats on top. Looked at that, we're getting new scoreboards, thanks to the athletic boosters, bought us the digital scoreboards, so we saw where those are gonna go up. And then Mr. Settles and I just talked, and a conversation led from one thing to another. We talked about career academies and programs that he's, maybe we could add, or ones that weren't very popular. How do we get those more popular? We talked about math teachers. It just was a rolling conversation. It was nice to just touch base with him and get his perspective on life at the high school. So, thank you.
I was also at the high school, checking at the Little Theater, and pretty much comments were the same. I remember being in the Little Theater in the 80s, and it wasn't really used that well even then. So it's super exciting to see that we're able to take this space and really morph it into something that can be really, really nice and useful to the curriculum. So it's going to be great.
I just took a peek at the floors and the scoreboard too. I didn't do a whole tour or anything, but I did take a peek in there. It looks great.
Yeah, I didn't do any formal visits, but just driving around town and seeing all the external work that's happening on all our buildings. It's nice to see a lot of those items getting checked off and preparing a lot of concrete. And the junior high, the stucco work is finally done. That looks a lot better than it was. So it's nice to see these things getting done.
The middle school didn't quite get maroon, did it? To drive by the other day, I was like, it's almost maroon.
The stucco?
I meant the middle school, if I said the junior high.
Around the windows you're talking about, yeah.
Because wasn't it like green or something before we did the remodel? Yeah.
We really struggled trying to find that right maroon and the options out there. It was tough, but and it came on like really nice. It's kind of faded a little bit on us, but I still think it matches way better than it did before.
I think it looks great. It's not green, so.
Okay, we'll move on to public comments and communication. This is the time during the meeting when the public may request to address the board. According to state law, if you wish to comment, you must identify yourself, including your address, the name of the organization you represent, and the topic that you wish to address. Public comment cards are located at the media table in the back of the room. Please pick up a card and provide the required information if you plan to speak. Each individual's comments will be limited to 5 minutes. Please note that the board cannot discuss or act upon matters that are not listed on the agenda. Therefore, board members will not respond to your comments or questions. If you wish to request that an item be placed on a future board agenda, you may contact the superintendent or his assistant during normal business hours. Also note that concerns related to school personnel need to be addressed to the superintendent using the approved district protocol. Individuals who make false, defamatory, or slanderous statements during public comments may be held legally liable. Slanderous comments are not protected just because they are made at a board meeting. Additional procedural guidelines are available at the media table. Is there anybody that'd like to speak to us?
Okay. I was looking at the, I noticed this on the student handbook. And this referring to the grade scale, changing the target-based grading score to a percentage score like which I assume is what you would look forward to when you want to make college applications in particular from the high school perspective. And notice that a 4 is over 100, but if you get a 3.5, you get a 99, only 1 point lower than a perfect score. Get a 3, which is that's a B, you have a 98. And that doesn't, I just thought maybe there was a mistake there, because it should be graduated more like when you get a 2.5, it's an 89, a 2 is an 80, 1.5 is a 70, and a 1 is a 61. That seems more correct. So I was just wanted to point that out. that I noticed that I saw that. And then I would make a quick comment on our achievement scores and meeting the state averages. Terry, you mentioned it. See, when I was in school, we had to always be we wanted to be 80s and 90s and always a little higher. And that was our goal as a school. And now when I see we're only targeting the state average, and the state average has really gone down, I think we need to put that up considerably and get a new target and be above. There are some schools that are above, because I seen a report last time, or one other meeting. So one of the schools, Elkhorn schools, was like in the high 80s. I think one of the Gretna schools was in the 80s. This needs to be our goal, because if we don't keep our achievement scores higher than a 50, which is what a lot of those averages were, 50 or below, we are not doing our kids a service. And I think if parents could interpret these scores and realize my kid's only getting 50 percentile on the grade, on achievement scores. I know it's an average. I get that. I was a teacher. I think they'd be disappointed. I think we need to really look for set a higher goal as a school district. That's my only comment. Thank you.
I want to thank you for your comment. I would do one clarification, though. It's not a 50%. That is the percentage of kids that are proficient. And I still agree we need to be higher, but it's not a 50% that they're achieving at. That's the percentage of kids who are proficient or more than proficient. So that's just a little difference, but we still need to boost it up. Thank you.
We'll move on to information and discussion items. Finance and Facilities Report, Eric Wilson.
Thank you, Madam President. The total amount of claims to be approved on the consent agenda by specific fund are listed below. General Fund, $780,429.58. Nutrition Fund, $27,442.16. Subsidiary Fund, $14,340.05. Special Building Fund, $300. Senior High Activity Fund, $30,975.87. Junior High Activity Fund, $13,397.24. And the Student Fee Fund, $9,021.55. All of these claims have been reviewed earlier today by the Finance and Facilities Committee. I also have just a short little presentation for you as well. Just wanted to give you an update on, obviously this time of year, we're starting to think about where's the budget at, what's our plan moving forward. So just kind of some updates as we're ending the 24-25 school year budget. This will be our fiscal year, officially ends end of August. Here's what we know right now. Our yearly revenue is up this year due to, we did receive an early state payment of property tax credit. And we've talked about this property tax credit in the past, but the property tax credit that everybody received on their property tax bill came directly to us from the state instead of from the taxpayer. Still a taxpayer fund, but when the state paid that to us, they paid that to us in April. So we received those funds earlier, whereas if the taxpayer had directly paid those in their August bill, we wouldn't have received those funds until September. So it appears like we have received more revenue because we did receive that payment earlier, even though normally we would have received that in the next fiscal year. We also had closed out the end of our ESSERs at the last year, so that those COVID payments, we've done a lot of those projects, but we didn't receive the funds from those projects until this current fiscal year. So the expenses were in the last fiscal year, the revenue came to us in this current fiscal year. And we also have talked about the increase in state apportionment that we received this year above what was budgeted. We do know that yearly disbursements are coming in as expected. We still have a number of summer construction projects that are ongoing right now. And we will finish out the year with our July and August payroll and bills, which will happen at the board meetings. As always, I do recommend that we will move some funds to our depreciation fund for technology purchases, curriculum, vehicle and maintenance projects before the end of this budget year. I'll bring more information to you that in the upcoming board meetings. And that will get us to the closeout of 24-25. As we look at 25-26, some budgetary impacts that we've discussed before. We do know that we will receive a large decrease in equalization aid for next year. That's an approximately $3 million decrease in state funding. Purpose or the reason for that large decrease was we did see a valuation increase last year that was higher than typical, and our levy is near that 90-cent level, whereas the state figures equalization aid off of a $1 levy. So large valuation increase with the lower levy results in a decrease in state fund there.
I'd like to comment on that for the people in the audience. And I think there's a rub right here, because the state figures our finances based on a $1 levy. Okay, and we're at 90 cents. So that difference in their 10% difference is what they're basing our aid off of. And they said, well, you have the ability to raise this much money with a $1 levy, but we don't have a $1 levy. So that's kind of the rub. So as you drop your levy, your state aid can also drop because you're not levying your full amount. So it's kind of a rub that I think they should generate our ability to pay based on our levy, our current levy, and not off a $1 levy. But that's how they do it, and we're not going to change that.
Thank you. Also, right now, we do know there are some federal grants that are on hold for next year. Title, 21st Century, ELL, migrant grants that are out there right now have been placed on hold. That might change tomorrow. That might change in a month. We just don't know right now. Impacts to our budget on those would be, obviously, our aftershock program is funded through the 21st Century Grant, and we have multiple ELL programs that are funded through ELL grants as well. And I'm not trying to be a sky is falling kind of thing here, just that we're aware. We're watching these things. We're going to continue to monitor them. As we get closer to the end of this fiscal year, we'll have to make determinations about what those things will look like and how they will affect next year's budget. We do know that negotiations at the for 25-26 salary increases resulted in a $1.6 million increase. That was through our negotiations process. We knew that but last January. We also know that as a board, we've made some budget cuts. We've talked about lots of open positions, consolidation of positions, and that we've already approved over $700,000 in cuts to our 25-26 budget. So all those things are things that I'm taking into consideration as we start looking at building for next year. So we also know we will not know what our valuations are until August 20th. So a little over a month yet before we know what true valuations are and how those valuations will affect the district budget. So once we get those numbers, that really helps kind of dictate then where we can set our levy at and how the business flows. August 25th would be our last board meeting of August of the fiscal year. At that point in time, we'll do our final closeout for 24-25, pay all of our final bills, any final transfers to our depreciation fund, and then we will be done with the 24-25 school year budget. And we'll start then previewing where we're going to be at for next year's budget. Obviously, dates will need to be set, but just kind of give you a general timeline. Early September, we'll start looking at that budget and tax hearing. Sometime early September, mid-September, we'll come to the board for a full budget approval. But the drop-dead deadline, we have to be done with our budget by September 30th and submitted to the state. So not a ton of information. I apologize right now. These are just the things that we know and wanted to kind of keep you guys appraised as we move forward. That's it.
I appreciate the update, Eric. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Eric. Teaching and learning report. Jared Oswald.
Thank you, Madam President. In June, the Teaching and Learning Office continued to work to complete all NDE data checks and distribute all curriculum materials to the buildings. Everything is on track for the start of the school year. The other thing we have been working on is finalizing our plans for the 2025-26 school year. The main focus for our professional development next year will be Professional Learning Communities, or PLC. On August 7th, which is the opening day for our staff, we will have a keynote presentation by Dr. Eric Twaddell that begins at 9:30 a.m. Dr. Twaddell is an expert on the PLC process and is currently the superintendent at Stevenson High School in Illinois, where PLC began. I would encourage board members to attend the presentation if they are able. This will be the first of 3 days of professional development that will help our district maximize the effectiveness of our PLCs. Any questions?
Thank you. American Civics Report. Jared Oswald.
All right. In compliance with Nebraska State School Law LB 399, the American Civics Bill, all building Americanism compliance reports have been submitted to the Director of Teaching and Learning. Teacher reports have been submitted to building administrators on American Civics and are filed within the building for review as needed. Compliance reports confirm that the building's social studies curriculum stresses the required patriotic themes. Above curriculum requirements, buildings have conducted appropriate patriotic exercises to celebrate holidays such as Veterans Day. Senior high students are also required to complete the American Civics assignment. Samples of these projects are reviewed by the American Civics Committee every fall.
Thank you. Multicultural Education Report. Jared.
Thank you, Madam President. In compliance with the State Board of Education Rule 10 and LB 79-719, Norfolk Public Schools has completed the multicultural education requirements for the school year 2024-25. The philosophy of the multicultural education program is that students will have improved ability to function as productive members of society when provided with an understanding of diverse cultures and races, the manner in which the existence of diverse cultures and races have affected the history of our nation and the world, and of the contributions made by diverse cultures and races, and B, the ability and skills to be sensitive toward and to study, work, and live successfully with persons of diverse cultures and races. The mission of the multicultural education program is to prepare students to A, value and respect their own culture and race, and cultures and races other than their own, and B, eliminate stereotypes and different treatment of others based on culture and race. The mission shall also include preparing students to eliminate stereotypes and discrimination or harassment of others based on ethnicity, religion, gender, socioeconomic status, age, or disability. Norfolk Public Schools incorporates lessons that highlight the contributions of African Americans, Hispanic Americans, Native Americans, Asian Americans, and European Americans within its curriculum.
And do you do this through all grades?
Yes, every school has to submit this regardless of grade.
Student Programs Report.
Thank you.
And
Madam
welcome,
President. Thank
Lynette.
you.
Yes,
it's-
welcome to our team, welcome to our district, and we're glad to have you, Lynette.
It's been an awesome couple weeks, I'm not gonna lie. It's been, a lot of learning and a lot of
learning.
good things, yeah. But it's been very, very good, so thank you. I'm really honored to be here as the Director of Student Programs. I know big shoes to fill, lots of, good things happening. Just to update you on my experiences that I have, I've served as both an elementary and secondary resource teacher, an instructional coach, served in curriculum and assessment as a coordinator. I've been an elementary principal and special education director. So some nice experiences that are definitely helping me as I navigate in this new position. Want to thank the team of people here in the central office who have been absolutely amazing and outstanding in answering questions and filling me in. And while the job duties are very similar to what I was doing, it's helpful to put bases with names and learn who does those roles here. So everybody's been very, very kind and very helpful. So it was a great welcome, and I appreciate that. So. For me, July, what we rolled up our sleeves and got working on right away was our, last year, Norfolk was part of a file review that many schools in the state were a part of. And based on those results and those findings, we developed a corrective action plan for areas that needed addressed and retraining and just resubmitted that to the state today, and they will, let us know when that's good to go. And then this fall, plan to have the leadership team, the special ed leadership team, review that with me, and then we'll have training in August for all SPED staff on the findings in that plan. So feeling good about that, and also working on some ELL things. Looking forward to going to administrator days because there's so many amazing people in one spot, and if you have questions, it's a great place to connect and get questions answered and things like that. So planning those two things, that. And last but not least, I did want to say, I really appreciate, I'm on the Council of School Administrators for our Special Education Director Group. I'm the region representative, and Norfolk is a central location for many of our regional directors. And we actually have our meetings here and have had them probably for at least 3 years. And so I really appreciate the use of the facilities, hosting the meetings and having a central place where people can come get together and talk about things that are really important to the job that we do. So thank you.
Thank you. And again, welcome. We're glad you're here. Okay, Student Services Report. Mr. Hughes.
Thank you, Madam President. Administrators, counselors, and teacher teams were able to meet with the Nebraska MTSS team in June here at Central Office. Our teams learned about academic and behavioral interventions for students while developing and modifying plans to help students be successful in each building across the district, kind of like Mr. Oswald had talked about during his presentation. Amy Brown and I were able to meet with the new middle school resource officer last week. We look forward to working with him and all of our SROs this school year, as we do have an outstanding partnership with the Norfolk Police Department. And just as kind of a refresher, at the high school, we'll have a new SRO this year, and that'll be Officer Chris Hansen. At the junior high and working with some of our elementaries will be Officer Brent Teets. And then our middle school SRO that will also be working with some of our elementaries is Officer Jordan Mason. So excited to work with them. And then we are preparing for fall registration. Online registration for the 25-26 school year opens tomorrow. We received many positive comments from families a year ago, and we anticipate online registration being an even smoother process this year. And then this is not in my board report, but Mr. McAllister and I have been talking about all of our buildings and safety and security and making sure that we're ready for the opening of the school year.
Human Resource and Accreditation Report. Lee Bauman.
Thank you, Madam President. The MPS Job Fair was held on July 19th here in this room for our open classified positions. We were able to make some hires that day and the following days after that, but we do continue to seek applicants for some of our unfilled classified positions, which are all posted on our website. Applications are also being accepted for substitute teachers and substitute paraprofessionals for the 25-26 school year. New school year will begin in less than a month for our staff. New staff will report on July 31st for training, and all staff will report on August 6th. The back-to-school staff schedule will soon be shared with all staff. Some are asking for it, and some will be disappointed when it arrives in their email, but it's time.
Couple things. I think you meant the job fair wasn't held on July 19th. Was it June 19th?
Correct. Thank you.
And one question I've wondered is, if we don't get all our special education teachers hired, how do we account for that, or how do we handle that then when we don't have all our teachers we need?
So currently we have a high school co-teacher position and a junior high behavior teacher position that principals have worked to move staff around to accommodate the best we can. So it will stress our staff because we're going to have to spread other areas a little thin. We also have 2 elementary positions that cover our parochial schools that are unfilled, so we are working with a company to try and contract some teachers from them, and we have interviews yet this week for those positions.
Through the contracted company?
Correct.
And will that be a lot more expensive then for the contracted company versus hiring them if we could?
It will be more expensive. I can't tell you what the difference will be, but we are required to provide special education teachers for those districts as well.
Okay, next is superintendent's report, and with this, I'd like to introduce and welcome Mr. Bill McAllister. I'm sorry I didn't do that at the beginning of the meeting, but this is our new superintendent sitting over here. He started July 1st. He has met with each one of us individually, and I know he's met with the central office many times. He's been out and about with the schools. He's been on the run. Hasn't been going since he started. So we're excited to work with you. I'm excited to learn from you, and we hope that we have a good, very positive year. Thank you, Mr. McAllister.
Well, thank you, Madam President, and I am excited to be here, and the first 2 weeks have been busy. Appreciated all of you taking the time to come in and visit with me. The Colt team has been great. You know, right now, the learning curve's kind of straight up and down for me, but I'm learning, and whether that's visiting with Chuck on safety protocols and anticipating some things, or Eric with the budget, and just Angie with the needs. And so Lynette and I are familiar with each other, so kind of coming in together has been very beneficial. And Jared and I have also had several conversations about PLC process. I've been thoroughly trained in that process, and I'm a strong believer in what it can do for your student achievement. Planning right now, I'm also planning for the opening presentations for our administrative teams, and then for our all teachers' staff meetings. I'll present for both of those, and just looking at it, trying to finalize the priorities, my priorities for the year, and getting input from different people on that, what's going to make the biggest impact. And that's what we want to focus on. So thank you very much. I'm thrilled to be here and a part of this team and to support everybody.
Thank you, and welcome again. Committee reports. Finance and Facilities. We met earlier today at 4:30. Board members in attendance were Tom Stanton, Steve McNally, and myself. The committee reviewed claims, financial reports, construction projects, and an ongoing summer projects. Lots of cement work is what we talked about. They also discussed a bus grant, van changes, and budget items. By van changes, we learned that we probably will not have to be able to use 11 passenger vans. We may be required to use 10 passenger vans. So what does that mean for our fleet? This included the budget timeline also, depreciation, and revenue. We talked about the budget too, things that he went over in his presentation. Any questions? The next is the Public Schools Foundation Committee report. We met on June 16th. Executive Director Austin Turex reported that $5,900 was raised for the Big Give toward the Bel Air Inclusive Playground, with additional fundraising planned by the PTO this fall. With the LIFE program moving to Bel Air, they wanted a playground especially for their LIFE kids that could utilize the playground, so they're working hard to get that accomplished. A $12,500 grant was awarded by the Norfolk Area United Way for the Panther Packs that will help provide food to students on the weekends. The Classroom Grant Committee met after to make grant selections and award grants to the teachers. And the foundation plans to meet again in September. We take July and August off, and then we'll be back running with the school year again. And we also will be at Teacher Day, meet and greet with the teachers, and we'll be part of the new, part of welcoming the staff back.
Brenda, just a question. How does the $5,900 from Big Give compare to amounts from the past?
Much better. We were very pleased that the Big Give, that's success for us. Normally we've been like 1,000 to 2,000, but when we put lots of cute pictures of little kids on the website, it helps. And also Austin did a better job of broadcasting it, a lot of media blast. He just really hit the social media on our project and what it meant and getting information out there. So $5,900 was a big deal to us.
Great.
Now they want to raise like 40,000, but $5,900 we were happy about. Consent agenda. We have minutes of the previous meeting. They're attached. June 23rd. Could we have the people in the audience be quiet so that I can keep this meeting going and not be interrupted? Thank you. Personnel, And contracts for approval. Angie Bauman, please.
Thank you. We do have one contract for approval tonight. Brielle Zedeker as a special education teacher. She is actually, it's listed as adult transition, but she would be part of the, she would be in with our students at the high school. Yes, thank you. The vocational coordinator, which is how it is listed on her contract. She does have a Bachelor of Arts in Communication and Early Childhood Education, and she qualifies for an alternative certificate and will be working on her certification as she is teaching. Since 2021, she has been a job coach paraprofessional at Norfolk Senior High in the program that she will now be teaching.
And how long does she have until she has to have her certification completed?
2 years.
And claims. Eric.
Yes, Madam President. Attached are the claims. These were reviewed earlier by the Finance and Facilities Committee. There are no conflict statements this evening.
Okay.
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Patty and a second by Tom. Is there any other discussion on the consent agenda? Vote.
Motion carried 6-0.
On to action items. 9.1, discuss, consider, and take action to approve the 2025-26 Certified Staff Handbook. Angie, could you tell us about that?
Yes, we have multiple handbooks for your approval tonight. I did send these out earlier in June for any questions or concerns. There were no significant changes in the Certified Staff Handbook other than removing the Title I parental involvement policy, which the board voted to rescind that, and a few minor changes that were highlighted. Were there any questions on the handbook?
I'll make a motion to approve the 2025-2026 Certified Staff Handbook.
Second.
I have a motion by Tom and a second by Steve. Is there any other discussion or questions we have before we vote? Okay, please vote.
Motion carried 6-0.
9.2, discuss, consider, and take action to approve the 2025-26 Classified Staff Handbook. Angie Bauman.
Again, seeking approval for the Classified Staff Handbook for the 25-26 school year. I did also highlight any minor changes in that handbook as well and did not receive any questions or concerns from board members.
Make a motion to approve the 2025-2026 Classified Staff Handbook.
Second.
I have a motion by Patty and a second by Steve. Is there any other discussion or questions before we vote on the Classified Staff Handbook? Please vote.
Motion carried 6-0.
9.3, discuss, consider, and take action to approve the 25-26 Substitute Teacher Handbook. Angie.
For the final handbook, the only changes in the substitute teacher handbook were on pay and some dates, and also noting that NDE has changed the requirement for a local sub-certificate, and it was a 60 credit hour requirement for that certification, and that has been changed to 48 credit hours. So the handbook was changed to match that requirement.
Is that 48 in any, just 48 credit hours in college, or does it have to be in a specific subject?
It does not.
I'll make a motion to approve the 2025-2026 Substitute Teacher Handbook.
I'll second the motion.
I have a motion by Tom and a second by Patty. Is there any other questions or concerns about the substitute teacher handbook? Please vote.
Motion carried, 6-0.
Now we'll discuss, consider, and take action to approve the 25-26 Little Panthers preschool handbook. Chuck Hughes.
Yep, attached you have the Little Panthers preschool handbook, which was sent to you in advance to go through. As with all of our handbooks this year, there were some significant changes due to different laws changing and laws coming about that we did not have to worry about in the past. But first one up is Little Panthers.
I'll make a motion to approve the 2025-2026 Little Panthers preschool handbook.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Patty and a second by Tom for the Little Panthers preschool handbook. Is there any discussion, comments, questions before we vote?
I have a comment, and this kind of, I don't know how to approach this, because in studying the handbooks, all of the handbooks, pre-K through high school, have this same concern for me, and that is when it comes to a process of going up through the chain of command, and if it gets to the Board of Education, they have added, and I talked to, I think I sent that to you, Brenda, I'm concerned that they're allowing a committee to make a final decision on this. To me, I consider that a circumvention of the board, and I would be very upset if I was a parent or a teacher or whatever. I brought my concern up through the ranks, and that's difficult and takes a lot of time to go to different steps, and I got all the way to the board, and then to me it's disrespectful that a committee would make that decision. And I don't know if we could remove it from all of the handbooks before we do an approval. I don't know how to work that, but that's my concern.
Bill, would you like to explain your thoughts on this? Because I asked you about this.
Chuck did come in and visit with me about that, and what we're mainly referring to here is in the situation most likely is going to be on a suspension, a student suspension, that if we suspend somebody for like 9 days and they have 5 days to appeal it, and then they bring it to me and they appeal it and we send back. But the time we would come back to the whole board and advertisement for that whole board, the suspension, they would have already served their days. So in my thinking, is the transparency to the parents to say, we're going to act on this appeal or this protest as soon as we possibly can. And no, if there is a board meeting, we would utilize the whole board whenever possible to make these decisions. But if it is and I think of a situation that we once had, a situation where there was a game involved. Actually, it was an FFA trip. And the parents came in and appealed the decision. Well, if they would have had to wait to the board meeting and for us to advertise, FFA trip would have been over. So we would have never really helped the parents in that process. Whenever we can use the board, and I think we can put something in there about, okay, who's the committee? You know, and I don't think the same 3 people should be on the committee every time, but maybe there's 3 people for, if we have one commit for this first incident and the other 3 would be for the next incident. But bring that recommendation to the whole board at the next board meeting. This is what we did. We still want the transparency there. I just don't want a parent to appeal something and have to wait and the suspension be over before they could ever get an answer. That would be my concern.
So Dr. McAllister, is there no way to have a special board meeting when a situation like that arises, that you can't call a special board meeting and deal with it in a timely manner?
You are correct. You can have an emergency board meeting, but even with that, it takes time versus calling 3 people committee together and say, hey, we're going to meet this afternoon and we're going to address this and let the parents come in and present, to that committee. Whatever the board decides on this, you're the ones who are going to have to decide. If I'm the parent and if I'm appealing a suspension, I want it to be handled as quickly as possibly possible. So my son or daughter isn't setting out of the activity, school, whatever it is, for any longer than they have to until they have an opportunity to be heard. That would be my perspective. As a parent, I wanted to go quickly, and I would also say this with my experiences. We had weekly newspapers. You know, if this happens at 5 o'clock, we're going to get a newspaper. Hopefully, within the next 2 days, the notice time that we have to have for emergency board meeting, I think I'm correct, in 24 hours. So we are looking at 3 days minimum. So, and I just think we can get a committee together sooner. It doesn't make any difference to me. I'm trying to be helpful to the parents in my process, and I understand with the board to say, hey, if all of you want to be in on that decision, that's okay. We can do it that way. And so tell us what your thoughts are.
Well, again, I disagree. I think it's very important that we send a message to our public that by the time it gets up to the board level, that we are willing to take some extra time. Our daily news is published daily, and I think that would be a consideration, that we could call an emergency meeting and advertise it and do it in a timely manner. That would be a message of respect to the people who are going through the process. That's my opinion personally.
Yeah, just a clarification. I think this language is included because it was in the law that was passed. That's why the language is there as it is.
And Dr. Goebbels, that is correct. That came from our lawyer.
So also, am I to assume that on a suspension, not always would it escalate to the board? It may be taken care of at the building level or in the superintendent level.
You are correct.
Hope it's taken care at that level. We hope it doesn't reach us.
Has it ever been taken to the committee? Have we ever had anything go to the board committee? When's the last time?
In my time as an assistant principal and in student services, I've never had one get that far. So that's 10 years, 15 years.
And in my time as a principal, we never had any appealed up here to central office either. Knock on wood, of course.
I'm good with the committee. I think that that's really fair. I think there's a time and a place for emergency board meetings, so I definitely would trust the committee that was working on it.
And I do value Cindy's input to say, hey, if it gets to this level where they want to appeal to the board, it should be the whole board hearing it. And I definitely understand that. It would just be very frustrating for a parent waiting for that time. And maybe at that time, the parent says, no, I want to be in front of the whole board. And if that's okay, then we can arrange that rather than the committee. But as you do that, time goes away, you know, so.
And the committee can keep the other 3 board members up to speed with what's happening. You know, obviously, just for the public's sake, you know, all 6 of us can't get together without it being publicly notified. So that's where the discretion is coming in.
So let's say the board or so that would be of the superintendent. Parents have requested the whole board, and if then
Other thing, Cindy, and I do like your idea. I'm not against it, but I think the reality of it is that you call a special board meeting and Steve's out of town, Dr. Goebbels is out of town, you know, we don't have enough to have a quorum. Now we've got to wait another week, and, you know, if it's just some severity that we really, really need to have the board meeting, I don't think anybody's opposed to that, but for simplicities and trusting the other committee and board members, I think it's probably easier for everyone involved and expedites the parents' concerns.
I just think it sets a precedent of circumventing your board, and I just don't care for it. So.
I agree with Dr. Goebbels. I think that we shouldn't get in the practice of not following our legal counsel's advice when their job is literally to protect the district from lawsuits. So I'm going to agree with that. Also, I think there could be numerous situations where one or multiple board members may have to recluse themselves from a decision-making process because of their contact or relationship with people involved. So if we require the full board to be part of that process, we've immediately kind of shot ourselves in the foot.
Any other discussion? So as of now, when we vote, it'll be committee of the board or the full board will be in the language. Okay. So please vote on this.
Motion carried 6-0.
Discuss, consider, and take action to approve the 2025-26 elementary handbook.
So attached, you'll see the K through 4 handbook. Once again, a lot of the changes are very, very similar, if not the same. So
I'll make a motion to approve the 2025-2026 elementary handbook.
I'll second the motion.
I have a motion by Terry and a second by Patty. Is there any discussion or questions, comments before we vote?
I just had a question. So do they not have a vaccination requirement anymore? Because I didn't see that.
there
They
is.
dismiss it? Because I saw that they had to have their birth certificate. I didn't see anything about. So did
That
I
has
miss
never
it?
been in our handbooks before, but there is a requirement.
There's a vaccination requirement. What do they do if they have religious problems with a vaccination?
With religious beliefs, there is a form that they fill out and they submit to us.
Okay, that answers my question. Thank you.
Motion carried 6-0.
Discuss, consider, and take action to approve the 2025-26 Norfolk Middle School handbook. Chuck Hughes.
Attached, you'll see the middle school handbook. The changes that we discussed earlier are in this one as well, and all the verbiage is the same.
I'll make a motion to approve the 2025-2026 Norfolk Middle School Handbook.
I'll second.
I have a motion by Patty and a second by Tom. Is there any discussion, questions, comments before we vote?
Again, I have a couple of questions. First question, what is alpha grading? I didn't understand that. What is that?
Say that again.
In there, alpha grading. When is alpha grading used and what is that?
A, B, C, D, F.
It's using, okay, that's, okay, all right. Need to write it out for me. Say alphabet grading, okay. And then the other question I had was, and I know this is probably going to be something that we need to deal in the policy committee, so I'm not, bringing it up to vote against it or anything. But I would really like to see next year maybe to do something to be more explicit as to having maybe a standard form for bulletin board, like if you're going to have a club to have the same basic information all the way up from middle school up to high school to have their bulletin board information the same and keep it very standardized so that there isn't this big discrepancy with what goes on. That's just a comment, and I think that would need to be handled in policy maybe, I think. So I just wanted to make a comment. I noticed that each of those handbooks talk about bulletin boards, so I was just making that comment.
Okay, thank you.
Please vote.
Motion carried 6-0.
Discuss, consider, and take action to approve the 2025-26 Norfolk Junior High School Handbook. Chuck Hughes.
Attached, you will see the handbook for our grades 7 and 8. Once again, the changes are the same, and the verbiage is the same.
I'll make a motion to approve the 2025-2026 Norfolk Junior High School Handbook.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, we have a motion by Patty and a second by Terry. Is there any other discussion, comments, questions on the junior high handbook?
Yeah, I have one question, I guess maybe suggestion. When I was reading about Chromebooks and misuse of Chromebooks, and it talked about the penalty box, the first thing that came to mind was hockey, you know? And I know what it is with Chromebooks, but because we gave a description of stop in the context of Chromebook misuse, it might be good to put the description of the penalty box.
And we can do that moving forward. For those that aren't aware, the penalty box through Go Guardian, if we have students that are misusing their Chromebooks, searching sites that maybe they shouldn't be, we can make their access, we can shrink their access to what they're able to see. So if you think about the world, you have access to everything. Obviously in a school, there's a lot less that we give them access to. If we put them in the penalty box, which is what it's called, basically it's just the sites that they absolutely need. So that's what that means. And I know that's a junior high, they are big on utilizing that and retraining our students on what's appropriate and how to use our Chromebooks correctly. So.
Thank you. Okay. Please vote.
Motion carried 6-0.
Discuss, consider, and take action to approve the 25-26 Norfolk High School Handbook. Chuck Hughes.
This is our final handbook for your perusal this evening, and it is attached for our high school. Once again, all of the changes by law were made. So.
I'll make a motion to approve the 25-26 high school handbook.
I'll second the motion.
A motion by Tom and a second by Patty. Is there any questions, comments, discussion?
This is just a comment. I don't think there's anything that needs to be revised right now, but with the electronic communication device policy, the way that the policy information was presented in all the handbooks, the middle school, junior high, and elementary schools, their statement at the end of the policy is, because bringing electronic devices to school is voluntary, the school or Norfolk Public Schools are not responsible for stolen, lost, or damaged personal electronic devices. In the high school policy, it just says Norfolk High School is not responsible for the loss of these items. So going forward, I know we're going to be working on this policy throughout the year and everything, I would like to see that statement consistent across all buildings and areas.
Yep, I will make that note and have it fixed for next year.
Mr. Hughes, the target-based grading scale, where did that come from? That change?
That has been in our handbooks ever since we've had our target-based grading committee for a few years.
Yeah.
Mr. Oswald?
Yeah, there was a committee that worked pretty extensively to put that together.
Was there changes on how the grades, did you change it?
There have not been any changes since it was developed.
And just because it got brought up, there are no typos in that scale at all?
Nope, there are no typos. That is
Thank you.
correct.
I've had a parent who actually is an administrator in higher education who brought that complaint to me regarding the conversion, the 100 to 99 to 98 and the 89 jump. So, it'd be interesting, maybe if we could work on that, look at that again throughout the year and see if we could revisit that.
Yeah, I will talk with Mr. McAllister about that, and then probably be a place to start would be the curriculum committee to have that conversation.
Do you know a reason why it is just one down? Is there a reason that
I believe the rationale was if we are setting a 3 as proficient, they believe that it should be an A. That's the goal. That's where they're saying that students are having the success that is demanded in the state standards, and so that was a part of the conversation. Yeah, I would definitely be open to having the conversation, though.
And he is correct on that. The conversations that time, as a building principal, were 3 is proficient. And so when we started having those conversations about living in both worlds of target-based grading and your numeric grading, there was a strong feeling that we needed to have a conversion chart. And so that's where those numbers kind of came from.
And I think the conversation was that it would be very difficult to say a student is proficient and not give them an A.
So this chart was made by Norfolk?
Yes, based on a lot of work and a lot of research.
As a teacher, I just would really like to relook at that as well as the target-based grading, and that's no surprise. I've been that way for almost 2.5 years now, that I really would like to take a look at that before next year and the handbooks next year. I also have one more question. In looking through the handbook, I was just curious as to why does physical ed just have pass-fail? What's the logic of that, or what's the reasoning behind that? And it's the only one at, like, not choir, not band. Why PE?
A big part of the reason for that is we have a lot of PE classes that students take multiple times. So the conversation was, it's really difficult to give a student a grade and they're receiving that same content multiple times. Like, one example would be weightlifting. Those students take that several times throughout their high school career.
Kind of forgot about that. I've had a lot of complaints on that with parents, that it's because then the effort and the student knows it's pass or fail. And so you've got your kids who are there to put their work in, and they're holding up the ones who maybe are not that interested in it, and they know it's a pass fail. They're going to just do the very minimum. So the look would be, is everybody getting the most out of their time that's going there, and to show up and to just really exceed?
Sure, that would be a conversation, again, worth having maybe with the curriculum committee.
Jared, how is a pass-fail grade used in GPA calculation?
That's a good question, Tom. I don't honestly know off the top of my head. I would have to look. My guess would be it's not included in GPA calculation, but that's just my guess.
So I could see that being a reason why it should be graded as pass-fail, because if you have a student that is consistently, taking 4 years of weight training, that could artificially inflate a GPA.
Sure. Yep, we can have that conversation.
How do you fail PE?
They have parameters set up. It would be basically a combination of not doing the things that are required, like not dressing out consistently, being available to participate, not meeting the standards that are set. They still have standards that are set that they're requiring those students to meet.
Honestly, do you know what they are?
In PE, it would just depend on the PE class. Like I said, weightlifting, they've got some things written of the minimum standards. They have to understand how to do certain lifts, for example. They have to dress out for a certain number of days and participate in the workout. So it would be not meeting those requirements that they have.
So participation means showing up?
Showing up and being, like I said, dressed out for workouts. Like if you don't wear PE clothes, you can't participate in the workout, right? And if you're doing a weightlifting class, then you're not getting the benefit from the weightlifting. I could do some more research on that and bring it to you guys with what specifically they have. I know they have specifics. I just don't know what they are off the top of my head.
So they have to wear their gym clothes and show up?
And participate in the workout and work out to a certain level of what the requirements are.
Okay. Sounds good. We should probably take a look at that.
Okay, please vote.
Motion carried 6-0.
All the handbooks ready to go. Now we just need students to follow the handbooks. To read them, yes, you're right. Future
Just another comment. I think though it takes a lot of reading, I always appreciate reading through these handbooks every year. And just based on our discussion, it's clear that when we read the handbooks, we recognize some things that maybe we don't understand or we'd like to at least discuss. So I think it's an important process, though it's labor intensive.
Do you print or do you read off your screen? Because I print and I'm like, oh boy, that's a lot of reading.
I just want to make another positive comment as well. As I was looking through, especially the preschool, I loved the format that they had. I thought that was really wonderful. And then I'm trying to think which one it was. I think the middle school was the one that had listed all the guidelines. And I thought that was very clear as a parent. That was, the way they did that was really good. And I liked that format. So good job middle school and good job pre-K.
Anything else? Okay, future meetings. The second monthly meeting of the Board of Education is scheduled for Monday, July 28th at noon. The following regular meeting of the Board of Education will be held Monday, August 11th at 5:30 p.m. in this room. All components of these meetings will be held at the MPS Central Administrative Offices and will be open to the public unless an executive session is needed in order to protect the interest of the district or the reputation of an individual. Meeting is adjourned, I think in our fastest time ever, just a little over an hour.